Sawzall. Alrighty guys, so today we're doing a S&B cold air intake on a 2011 6.7 Powerstroke. First thing you're going to want to do, disconnect the battery terminals, and on both sides because you got two batteries. And then make sure the truck's in park, ignition's off, and make sure the parking brake's set. So next step, you're going to have to pull off the mass MAP sensor. It should be right here on the intake. Just pull this little red clip out, push down on the black tab here, and it'll lift up on this little connector in there, and it'll slide off there. Once you get that pulled off, you can go on the next step. Alright, next step, you're going to want to take off this hose clamp right here. It's 15/16 size, 1/4 inch drive. You can put on impact like we do, it makes it easier, or you can use a flathead screwdriver, and that'll work as well right here on the back side of the intake. And then as well, you got to unclip all of your intake air box clips, so you can pull that off. There's 4 of them, and then there's a back thing on the other side, but we'll work on that in a minute. Alright, so the next step, pulling this intake off, you're gonna loosen up the turbo inlet hose clamp, which is gonna be back here. You can see the drill on it, that one, and there's also another one over here that you need to unscrew as well. Alright, so the other screw or bolt, I guess you could say, you need to get undone is right here. It's going to be under these, I think these are vacuum hoses right here. You're going to be right here. It's pretty easy. They're pretty torqued on from the factory, so if you got an electric impact gun with a 1/4 inch drive like we have, they're pretty good. You can pick them up at Harbor Freight for like $5, at least the impact drive. So yeah. Alrighty, so the next step right here is going to be to pull out basically the entire intake assembly. Make sure you got all the hoses, like coolant hoses like this one here, disconnected, vacuum hoses and such disconnected. To make sure everything's out of the way so you can get it out. So pretty much everything that goes over here. Alright, so next step, after you get done with pulling that intake inlet tube out, which is going to connect right here, which is your turbo inlet housing. You can actually see the turbo if you look down in there. I think it's a little, I believe on the 6.7s it's 66 mil, if I remember correctly. If not, I don't know, but you look down here, you got one bolt that's right here. It's again a 5/16. They make it really easy for you because Ford's nice like that. Get that unbolted, pull that out. We already pulled the intake air filter out. That isn't the next step technically, but we did it beforehand. So after that, you just got to kind of work out the intake box around the intake, tube area. So, but yeah, that'll be. Alright, so once you get the OE box out, you'll see 2 little holes down there. Those are going to be what your new intake's going to mount into. This is the air inlet grommet, or they say gasket, but I call it a grommet. Fits around this little intake box right here. If you had a goober like we had that used to work on this truck apparently, who dicks it up and bends it like crazy, you might want to clean it up and fix it yourself. So. Yeah. On the hood. Okay, so next up, you got a rubber washer that comes in the kit. That's gonna go. Move the intake out of the way. It's gonna go right here, over top of this, where the that screw goes in. I used plastic conditioner to spray down these holes down here. It'll make it way easier to try and get the intake box into the new ones. I just did that to prep for now, as well as you got to insert the old intake air gasket right there. And then also the new S&B one goes right in this hole right here, and you just press that in. All right, so once you get that grommet taken care of, we're leaving ours out because, I say you don't need it. If you feel like it's gonna be running cooler with it plugged in, go right ahead. That's completely up to you. I, for one hand, don't think you need to. Diesels have a charge air cooler for a reason. They cool off the intake air. It doesn't matter. Anyway, once you get this in here, you're going to want to make sure that this gasket is in place around the OE intake air tube, I guess you could call it. And also make sure down at the bottom that the 2 grommets right here are pushed in to the little plug holes, as well as you have the rubber gasket that came with the kit in place back here. I don't know if you can see it from back over there. Should be right there. Under the intake where the OE screw goes back in. Something that might come in handy, just because I found it was in the way. If you pull off the positive terminal, it's not gonna hurt anything. Just pull it off real quick, and you can get to that screw way easier. Again, using the impact kind of helps because you can actually get some torque down on that thing, because it's a little down in there. So now that we got everything else in, you gotta grab this is off your intake here, off your actual like intake filter. You're gonna need to reuse the restriction gauge. They call it something different. What do they call it on there?
Minder.
The filter minder. But it's really a restriction gauge, or Donaldson gauge is what they're really called.
You need a filter minder.
So yeah, you need the filter minder itself. So we're gonna push to reset it. Guess it was already fucking reset. And then the grommet that comes with it, you're gonna insert it right here on the back side of this intake here. And again, you might want to. Oh, we didn't need it. Okay. Gonna say you could use some more of the WD-40 or the plastic conditioner. And then once you get that in there, just force feed that thing in there, and you're all good. All right. So next step here is gonna be getting your MAF, or mass airflow sensor, out of the stock intake, which is gonna be right over here. It's gonna be right here. There's gonna be 2 hex bits, and if you buy the S&B air intake that we have, it will come with a hex tool to actually pull these right out, and they're pretty tight in there, so you know, be careful, don't hurt yourself. But once you get that, you insert it in here. Which way does it? Oh, don't do that. You can break the MAF really easy. All right. So you're gonna want to make sure that this plug is facing away from the air restriction gauge. So you want to be facing down like so, and then just use the stock hex screws to insert it. All right. So correction. The air intake kit comes with its own Phillips head screws like that. They're different thread pattern, thread pitch than the stock ones. So use those, and they make it a lot easier because they're Phillips head and not that weird hex. Okay, so now you're gonna get the smaller of the 2 adapter rubber grommets. Grab the 2 size 72 hose clamps, and again, these are gonna be the same 5/16 if you want to use a ratchet or an impact. And you're gonna want to tighten it down only on that intake inlet right there. Try the turbo inlet, and then that'll be it. And you just clamp down the side on the turbo inlet. That's it. So now you need to grab the other 2 intake pieces right here. So this bigger rubber grommet here, that's going to go around this end of the intake. They call it the hump tube, hump adapter. Just going to slide over like that. This is going to be the part that goes into your intake manifold, turbo inlet manifold. This is going to go, you're going to have one of the 72 clamps, the 2 remaining ones go on here, tighten that one down, and the other one is just going to sit on there for right now until we connect the other parts. So coming over here to the truck, gotta put, just tighten this one down, just nice and snug. You don't have to, you're not gonna go super crazy with it. Again, it is plastic, so you don't want to break it. Another thing is too to say is just make sure that you make these very accessible, so that if you need to pull it off at any point or something breaks and you need to change it, just make sure that you can get to them really easy. It makes your life easier. I dealt with a few intakes that they put them in the really weird spots, and it just makes my life a living hell. So just make sure you put them in a decent spot. Next step is going to be insert this into the turbo inlet housing. So insert that right there, and then clamp it down. All right. Now that once you got everything in there, that's what it should look like so far, and we'll go from there. We got the entire thing installed now. We have a few little dress-up things left to do. But you're going to want to loosen this clamp here to be able to finagle this a little bit so you can fit the actual intake boot that goes into the intake itself. Because you're going to want to connect this to here, but then you're going to want to try and connect this to here, and it won't move at all, so you can't slide this in and slide the intake in at the same time. Again, make sure that you keep these in a really accessible place because they're a bear to get to if you can't. But other than that, we're just going to finish up dressing everything up, and then we'll be done. Alright, so the next step here is going to be putting the plexiglass over the top here. You're going to want to get these screws, put the rubber grommets on the bottom like that, so that you don't crack the glass. You're going to have 4, you're going to have 2 big ones, and then you're going to have 2 small ones down here. The small ones are in my pocket. They're going to have their own rubber grommets as well. Once you get those inserted, that'll be pretty much it, and then we'll finish up the rest of it. So once you get the intake and everything put in, just make sure you reconnect the mass airflow sensor. Make sure that's in the right position. Put the piece of foam that it comes with right around here. And other than that, that's everything. And that's how you put in an S&B cold air intake on a 6.7 Powerstroke.